Hello and welcome to GM Tips. GM Rick here. We've got a singing mini GM in the background having fun. As you can tell, she's singing all kinds of different songs she likes to sing. She's going to be our singer of our bunch in the family. So, I'm going to follow up on this one. This is one that I talked about using the first world of the Fey in your campaign, the Realm of the Fey. And I've also got the Fey Revisited. And just Fey in general. And I'm going to title this one Fey NPCs and I hate the word boss. I do. I know why, because they say it in the video games. And main bad guys for your campaign. Or just, I look at NPCs, when I use the term NPC, I mean anyone that may not oppose the party. The party could turn them as an enemy, but they're not defined as an enemy of the party. Then you have those that are the enemy of the party. Now keep in mind, there are so many different types of Fey. In Pathfinder alone, Paizo's Pathfinder, there's probably about 30 or more types of Fey creatures. You got to think of it this way. The Fey world, when it was created by the deities, so whether it is done in a modern campaign, a futuristic campaign of RPG, or in a past or a fantasy realm, it is a whole world. The Dresden Files did a great job in Jim Butcher's books. And for those of you that have not noticed, I'm a huge Jim Butcher fan. And if you ever get to talk to him, you can say, huge Jim Butcher fan. And a lot of the reasons of how I run my Fey come off of his books. Because I think he has a real deep understanding of Fey in general and how they play out. The Fey, throughout the history of our world, have been seen as capricious, legendary creatures. And what I mean by capricious, they like to have a wicked sense of humor in any dealings they do with mortals. Why? They're long-lived, they're bored, they have immense amounts of power at their fingertips, maybe because of how they were treated by the different creator beings of their world and how they were looked at. I think Paizo does a great job of explaining the Fey, that the fact that this world and the first world here of the Golarion Inner Sea campaign, James Sutter does a great job of just saying, look, it was a dry run at what they were going to make the prime material plane, these deities. And so they tried out different experiments in it to see what worked and what didn't. Necessarily didn't kill things off. They let them live. And they didn't attach them to the river of souls that takes things to the afterworld or the next evolution of life. They disconnected it. So really, Pharasma has kept her hands off of it. Now, mind you, you can adapt this to any of your, you can do Narrow, or you can do, what's the one? Starts with a J in Faerun. I used to remember all these. Jurgle. You could have Jurgle basically have similar policies with the Fey. The Fey have always looked at human beings as short-sighted and very destructive to their realms and the areas that they are guardians of. So generally, humans, dwarves, halflings, half-elves, half-orcs, orcs, kobolds, goblins are seen as destructive, angry little creatures that are short-sighted, that destroy anything that the Fey try to create. Not so with gnomes, not so with elves, full-blooded elves, and other creatures that are longer lived and tend to, understand the workings of the Fey much more. For instance, in this world, the gnomes of Golarion and Pathfinder come from this world. They are a first world creation, and it's a great explanation of gnomes because it takes them back to their Fey roots. So often in a lot of the RPG systems, in my mind, the gnomes they're the stepchildren of PCs. And what I mean that is they're treated horribly. They're not explained well. They're kind of thrown in as a Me Too You can play them, and they're kind of looked at like garden gnomes out of Romeo and Juliet, which is a funny movie, by the way, but I hate that version of a gnome. If you ever produce a Romeo and Juliet character in any campaign I ever run, you're going to get on my bad side quick, because gnomes are not those. They are not garden gnomes with big tall hats that run around, or like is on Troll Hunters, this new animated thing for kids, where they run around going, "Ang, ang, 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 ang." That's not a gnome. Okay? They're not stupid. They're not angry little temperamental goblins. They make gnomes into goblins. They're not goblins. Gnomes are very intelligent fae that have a very creative mind, that love a wicked sense of humor at times. Why? Because they come out of the world of the fae. The fae have a wicked sense of humor and a wicked sense of playing tricks. And that is just how they are. Now, summer fae tends to be a little nicer than winter fae. Yeah. Titania, I don't know how much more friendly she is than her sister in the winter realm. I don't know if either one is very much nicer. They just look at humans as, okay, pesky little pests that bother them. Same thing with all the short-lived races. So when you're playing Fae, that's kind of the mindset you got to take with them. They look at you as playthings. They look at the characters in the party as play toys. They love to toy. And the more intricate the deal, the more intricate the dealings, the more fun they get to spin around and play around, the more interested the Fae are. Especially when it concerns contracts. I hate to say they're not like devils in that, but they are very much about, you better word your words correctly, because there's many meaning. If you say you want $1,000, kind of like the commercial with the genie, where you see $1,000 appear with horns, kind of like that, they take your words as literal, and they love wordplay. They like intricate, twisty deals, because that draws their attention. Now they're going to work with you to try to come up with something that works, but is in their favor. And it's always about the negotiations. Why is that? Because they feel like, at least and I'll say this, in some cases they feel like they're forgotten, and they really are in a lot of worlds. They're the forgotten creatures, so they want to draw attention to themselves. Now, there are so many different types of Fae, but what are some really interesting ones that I find are interesting? I love red caps. I'll be honest with you. Why? Because, again, they're not the little garden. If you take a look at a red cap, and I'm going to pull the red cap out of here, because they did a great thing on them. They are an angry-looking gnome. They are twisted by hate and anger. They see pain as a plaything for them. So, as it says here with the nature of them, and I love them for this. In contrast with some of Galarian's more revered Fae, redcaps embody nature's cruel, sadistic underbelly. It's not just true of Galarian, it's in all the worlds, in all the fantasy games or modern games. They are the seedy underbelly of the Jack the Ripper type creatures. So it's a gnome gone wrong, almost. They're not gnomes, but they're kind of gnome-like. They're brutes that are used in the Fae army. They're used as enforcers by the more evil of the Fae. They tend to play around with winter a lot. They are used in summer, but they tend to be much more a winter creature. Dryads and nymphs, people love those because of their seductiveness. But yet, they're also the guardians of their area. I mean, the nymphs basically got the forest itself. The dryads are much more the protectors. So nymphs will serve dryads. Dryads generally are the protectors of whole forested areas or sylvan areas. And so they're much more, I would say, in the upper royalty of the Fae type of creatures. Gremlins, again, pranksters that come out of the Fae world. They are the little tricksters that run around and cause chaos. So if you want to mess with your party a little bit, throw some gremlins in. Gremlins aren't hard to kill, they're just hard to find. They cause all kinds of things to break and go wrong, and they are very much about stealing things and acquiring things. There's so many different types of them, and I don't know if you've seen all the different types. I mean, Paizo does a great job of really taking gremlins and taking them out to the nth degree of all the different types of gremlins that there can be in the world. There's not just going to be one. They're an evolutionary. You got to remember, the first world in this thing is chaotic. It's constantly shifting and changing. The rules are different. You may walk into one area and certain parts of it are fixed, but the first world is not fixed as a whole. It shifts. It is constantly shifting. And it's made to do that because of how its general physics are in general of these type of things. So what are your different types of things? There's the Foth, the Jinkin, the Mites, the Nuglub, the Pugwumpies, the Vexjit, and there's others that they've newly added since they've done this book. There are so many different types of gremlin fae that they just are. They are the little pests of the first world, and so they get into places and they know they're pesky and pests, so they're going to be a pest to your players in their type of play. Rusalka. Oh, I love Rusalka. They are the more cruel fays of the waterway, and they are truly nasty little individuals. The Rusalka come out of a Eastern Europe type of setting, and they are kind of the antithesis of the nymph because of their viciousness. I mean, take a look, and that will tell you alone what a Rusalka is about. We'd heard stories, the beautiful ghost walking the edge of the lake of drowned lovers. The stories were wrong. A creature of flesh and blood turned Gilvin against us, and the preternatural hair that held Rena under the misty waters until she stopped thrashing was real enough. The Rusalka are about bargaining and then taking you under the waters and taking your very breath away. Again, they put them as kind of, more of a nude thing. The reason is, understand, people that don't like this. Fae wear clothes just because that suits their fancy. They are sylvan creatures. They could care less about covering their true form. It's not about necessarily sexuality unless they want to use it to their advantage. They're not trying to do this to be pornographic. It is just the nature of Fae. Fae is not worried about man's conventions and its sensibilities. They are around a long time, so they could care less about your sensibilities. I'm using a sprite as an NPC. Now, I love sprites and pixies as NPCs because they're kind of the scouts and the little stealth brigade of both summer and winter. They tend to be hard to hit, so when flying around, they're not, unless you're coming at you in a horde, you're not going to hit them real easy. They dance around, they don't do a lot of damage, but what they do is annoying as heck. They will take away and tick away at you. Now again, kind of tough to run when it comes to reach and everything like that, and attacks of opportunity. Most likely, unless you're scrunched up against them, you're not going to provoke them attacks of opportunity from sprites and pixies, just because their reach is so tiny. However, they're fun to do as messengers, merchants, traders, acquirers, alchemists, herbalists, and even as ranger-type scouts and hunters. They're also really cool when it comes to swashbucklers, more of a Errol Flynn type with the swords, the little needle-style swords. Remily Fairhaven is a duelist / swashbuckler in the party she's in, and she was sent by the Summer Fae to protect them against winter. And she is just one of the most ferocious sprites you'll ever meet in your life. But funny as heck when she's out of battle. She can't shut up. She's a chatterbox. So I love playing her. She just chitters and chatters, and the party goes, oh my god. But when the battle hits, they know what she's going to do. She's going to find ways to get in there and help the party out in every way she can. She uses her invisibility to her advantage. They have won her over heart and soul. She trusts them. She's not capricious with them. So keep in mind, your Fey is capricious in the beginnings, but certain Fey over time, as they gain trust, so pecks, brownies, things like that, can become very loyal helpers to a party. They don't have to be capricious. They just are out of nature. How do you use them? I'd say anytime your parties are going into more rural areas, very rural areas, that's where they're going to encounter these type of creatures. And they vary. Like, for instance, Jessica Price put out with the desert realm of Kadira that there are sand-based Fey, even, for deserts. So keep in mind, Fey is not limited to green. Fey is anything nature. So they're going to have different types depending on the nature of them. So those of you running Dungeons & Dragons, those of you running Dungeon World, those of you running 13th Age, those of you running Numenera, Numenera, keep in mind that you can adapt a Fey to your world. So, for instance, Ninth World, could Fey have tech? Of course they could. In Shadowrun, would Fey have tech? Possibly. They're not huge on, they're more of natural things, but if something suits their needs to help them protect their realms and the first world, they would use tech. They just don't prefer to. It is not their preference. They would rather trust magic. But even their magic is not necessarily stable. And that's one of the things that's pointed out with the first world of the Fey with Paizo, is that things are not always stable in the Fey realm. So if you go use magic, so say your party goes over there to do a pact deal. So say on Midgard, they go over from the Midgard main city on the Midgard continent. I mention it because it has a lot of Fey surrounding it. It's a darker Fey. So it's the Dark World shadowy Fey that they're dealing with. Keep in mind that it doesn't necessarily mean that all the dealings and meetings are going to be hugely friendly when it comes to that stuff. So, and where I'm talking about, because you're going to ask which city I'm talking about with that, the city of Zobek. Zobek is surrounded with a Fey background out of Midgard. So keep that in mind. Wolfgang Bowers really did that. He incorporated the Fey pretty interestingly in that world. So it's kind of a forgotten Fey, and so they're a little more angry in their dealings, and a little more about their own pleasure and entertainment, so they want to gain things. I would say this. I've kind of given you guys a snapshot of Fey in general. Remember, there are multiple types of Fey. Summer, winter, shadow, positivity. 4 different aspects of Fey that exist. Each one very different. Shadow aligns much more with winter Fey because there's much more shadows and night fall in winter. Light tends to go with summer. Just because it's summer doesn't mean good, okay? That's not what it means. It just means warmth and green, where the others is cold and bitter. Purples, blues, ice whites. They're about nature's death, so they're more negative. Keep that in mind. In tying in plots, you got to ask yourself, why would the Fey appear in the first place? Are the players seeking to find out more about the Fey in their realm? Are they looking to bargain for something? Most parties are. Are they looking for a traveling companion that would help them along the way? Is there a plot twist that has to do with it? I know in one of the recent adventure paths that's being written, the Fey hates humanity, So it's not necessarily friendly to the Nirmathi or the Malthuni armies that are at each other's throats. They see both as encroaching nasties. Now, they're much more appreciative of the Nirmathi because the Nirmathi have ties to elves and the elven realms, and because the Fey kind of respects elves by their long-livedness because of their appreciation of the nature of Fey and the nature itself, there tends to be much more of a harmony between the two. That said, it doesn't mean that they're going to be allies. Fey hunger for the first world living and feelings and more of the stability at times. So that's what they treasure and want to rob from your characters. So you may have deals going on and double deals and other things going on that may not be good for your players. How do you want to put them into the plot twist? I mean, they can be a trading place for your players if they go out more into the wilds. Again, where are they going to trade things and sell things? But they might to the Fey, and the Fey may have some interest in things. Or they may say, yes, I'll trade with you if you can go find this rare thing for me. So there's deals that can be made. So they can become your traders or merchants or contacts. They can become a liaison to the players to get aid in a major battle or situation, especially if it threatens the existence of their more sylvan areas that they protect. Keep that in mind. They can also be the nemesis of your party, especially if your party is trying to expand a frontier village or frontier town, and the Fey doesn't like that. So they're fighting against that. They're fighting against the destruction of what they see as their realm. So they're going to do everything possible to sabotage it, so they can become the saboteurs, or the terror-like creatures that come out at night that supposedly will steal the children. These are the kind of plot things that you can throw into there with these type of characters that are in the Fey realm. Again, what are your nasty nasties? The Watcher in the Light is a nasty creature that the Fey has. The Gerbies, I love the little Gerbies. They're just cuter than it, and so adorable. And they're kind of good, but they have a they do cacophonies and charms, so they'll just come up and be so cutesy and charm the heck out of you. I like the Remissera. The Remissera, you think, oh, a nice worm. Not really. It'll eat you. So there's some really nasty ones in there. Mothmen. Fey touch creatures. I like the Chiaksani. They're kind of almost like a wood version of a sprite. They're the picture people. Chiaksani embody those aspects of nature that resemble other things. So they're chameleons. They change forms. So they're kind of like almost a shapeshifter. There are a lot of other different types of Feys that you can use. So keep that in mind as you're looking into that. Research the type of Feys available to you. Look at which ones would be more of the leader type. Don't be afraid to use classes with them and to give them class advancement. Write the ties of that first world that they come from. I know Paizo does a great job with the first world of the Fey, and I'd recommend that for any Pathfinder players or even D&D players. But if not, the D&D stuff, Faerun has its own Fey ties that they talk about in its own Fey realm. I believe the same is true with Greyhawk. I don't know about Ghostwalk. I believe so in 13th Age, because there's a lot of tie-ins, I think, to different types of lords and gods and deities. So they'll have some things there. Dungeon World, again, not as familiar with. Numenera, you can write pretty much your own because there's a lot of differences. So just want to leave you guys with that. Have a great week and use lots more Fey.